Just about 9 months ago, I made a video about what it was like to game on an RTX 3070 at 4K resolution. I still remember to this day how happy I was when I bought myself that GPU, cause before that I just had a 1050 Ti. The COVID times were rough, man, but eventually, after 5 years of selling PCs and offering various computer services, I finally managed to buy myself everything that I ever wanted, including this RTX 4070. Now $700 might not seem like much to a lot of people, but for me it's actually a big deal. I've been dreaming about buying this GPU since it was announced, and today I finally did it. Let me actually show you guys what my PC looks like right now. As you can see, it is pretty dusty, but I've definitely cleaned PCs that were way dustier than this. By the way, the M.2 SSD is like that cause I was testing something. I'm gonna talk about it later, but the PC really needs cleaning, as you can clearly see here. So I'm gonna do that real quick, then swap the GPU and come back to you guys once everything is done. Alright, so now that we have cleaned the PC and installed the RTX 4070 into the system, let's take a look at the benchmarks and make a comparison between how many FPS I was getting on the RTX 3070 and how many I'm getting right now on this RTX 4070. Let's begin with Doom Eternal. We are running this game on high settings at native 4K resolution, and I gotta say, it is running quite well. We're getting about 88 FPS with the RTX 3070 and 112 with the RTX 4070. Now, unlike most other games, Doom Eternal isn't as demanding on the graphics as it is on VRAM. So while the RTX 3070 would technically be able to play the game on the highest settings, it is lacking the necessary amount of VRAM to do so, which is where this RTX 4070 comes in handy. With a whopping 12 gigs of VRAM, we can crank the graphics to the max and enable ray tracing as well. And I'll be honest with you guys, I thought the FPS was gonna drop down to 60 or something, cause native 4K resolution on ultra nightmare settings with ray tracing enabled is quite demanding, I'd say. But because of how well optimized the game is, it can still deliver 80 FPS without breaking a sweat, which is pretty damn impressive. Next we have Need for Speed Heat. I'm gonna go with high settings here as well, cause Ultra doesn't even give us 60 FPS on the RTX 3070. Meanwhile, the RTX 4070 handles this game with ease, delivering a solid 75 FPS on average. I gotta say though, I played this game a lot. I even got all of the achievements in it, but I've never experienced what it was like to game at 60 plus FPS on the highest settings at 4K resolution till now. When I completed this game for the first time, I just had a mere 1050 Ti. I was literally playing on the lowest possible settings at 50-ish FPS, and it was awesome, but I kinda wish I had this kind of hardware when I played it for the first time. Cause the difference between 1080p low and 4K ultra settings is just uncomparable. But it is what it is, at least I got an RTX 4070 now, and I finally get to enjoy the game to the fullest. Halo Infinite. Another fun game that I really enjoyed on my GTX 1050 Ti. Now, unlike Doom Eternal, this game really loves raw GPU power. Having more VRAM didn't necessarily help here. I mean, 12 gigs is definitely better than 8, but this is one of those games where you're not gonna lose out on much by using a GPU with not a lot of VRAM. For the benchmarks, I chose high settings. And right off the bat, the difference in FPS is already noticeable. 54 on the RTX 3070 and 68 on the RTX 4070. Not much else to say here really. Other than the game just feels better overall, and I have slightly more FPS and lower latency. Now let's move on to a bit more demanding games. Cyberpunk. Here I went with medium settings. No upscaling obviously, we're testing all of these games at native 4K resolution. And I gotta say, the graphics are quite demanding. While we're able to maintain 60 plus FPS at all times on the RTX 3070, switching the settings to high simply cuts it in half. Same goes for the RTX 4070, except that the FPS is quite a bit higher, especially on the high preset. But realistically, you wouldn't really play this game at such a low FPS, so let's compare the results on medium settings for now. In this built-in benchmark, the RTX 3070 achieved an average of 75 FPS, while the RTX 4070 increased that number to 97, around a 25% improvement over its predecessor. Now, I didn't necessarily feel the improvement in terms of the game's responsiveness or something, but it definitely gave me a lot of headroom to set the graphics a bit higher. I'm gonna make a separate video about testing various settings in Cyberpunk and many other games as well, but for now, let's finish these tests and see how these GPUs compare to each other in Hogwarts Legacy. On medium settings at native 4K resolution, we got around 54 FPS on the RTX 3070 and 64 on the RTX 4070. 10 FPS difference overall. Now 60 plus FPS is generally considered okay in most games, but whenever I play Hogwarts Legacy, I always try to go for higher FPS on lower settings instead, cause the gameplay here is quite action intensive, and when you only have a second or sometimes even less time than that to react to the enemy spell, it's really important for your game to be extremely responsive, which is why I prefer to play this game with DLSS enabled. Those few dozen extra FPS really makes the difference sometimes. And speaking of making difference with DLSS, our last game for today's benchmarks will be Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. This game is so graphically intensive that our RTX 4070 can't even run it at 60 FPS on the lowest possible settings at 4K resolution. I mean, okay, forget the 60 FPS, we can't even get 50 on this damn GPU. And it's even worse on the RTX 3070. This is what I meant with DLSS. The game is literally unplayable at 60 FPS without DLSS or frame generation. And it's one of my favorite games too. I legit thought that I would have at least 60 FPS on the RTX 4070, but oh well, better start saving for the 5090. I'm kidding, I cannot afford that GPU. I'm just gonna enable DLSS and that'll be it. Besides, I can barely notice any difference between having DLSS enabled and running it at native 4K resolution. Now, if my monitor was a bit bigger in size, maybe then I would have noticed it better, cause smaller the monitor is, the less noticeable the upscaled pixels are. But either way, I'm really happy with my purchase and it feels like I have fell in love with gaming once again. It is definitely enjoyable to play your favorite games on the highest settings, but man, it is so much more difficult now. You gotta invest thousands upon thousands of dollars to get the hardware that you need, and then every time a new game comes out, you gotta pay like $70 for it. Gaming has never been this expensive. I remember when I used to pay $5 to $15 for each game, and even though the life was way different back then, computer hardware was so much more accessible. Nowadays, you gotta make a choice between buying a car and a high-end gaming computer. But did I actually gain anything from upgrading to an RTX 4070? In my opinion, I think I gained a lot, cause I mainly use this PC for productivity, like recording bunch of gaming montage and editing 4K videos. And sure, you don't need an RTX 4070 to do any of those things, but when you have a lot of things open at the same time, they all consume a lot of video memory, hence the first reason why I decided to go for an RTX 4070. Second reason is frame generation. I wanna record some slow motion footage, and the more FPS you have in the game, the smoother your slowed down video is gonna be. Like if you slow down 60 FPS footage 4 times, it's gonna run at 15 FPS. But if you slow down a 240 FPS footage, it's gonna run at 60 FPS instead. And the delay in responsiveness of the game is irrelevant in this case, because if you're watching a video, how are you gonna know how delayed the player's commands were in the game? And last but not least, my third reason. Gaming. I also wanna play games, you know. I enjoy high graphics and high FPS as much as anyone else. But sadly, I still can't freaking do that. The requirements on these games are just too unreal these days. But anyhow, this is all I wanted to show you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be conducting even more tests on this RTX 4070, and as always, I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.